What if everything you thought you knew about history was turned upside down by a single, impossible discovery? Picture this: a team of archaeologists carefully brushing dust off a centuries-old artifact, only to realize it couldn't possibly belong where they found it. A medieval ring nestled in an ancient Egyptian tomb, a Chinese porcelain shard buried beneath a Mayan pyramid. These aren't just odd coincidences, they're earth-shattering anomalies that challenge the very fabric of our understanding. Somewhere hidden in the shadows of time lies a story we haven't yet uncovered, and today we're going to follow the trail of these bewildering clues together. Across the globe, in the most unexpected corners, objects have surfaced that defy explanation. How did a Norse runestone end up in the heart of North America centuries before Columbus? Why was a pristine Greek statue unearthed in a Japanese forest, thousands of miles from its birthplace? These aren't just misplaced items, they're whispers of forgotten connections, lost voyages, or perhaps even civilizations we've yet to name. Every one of these artifacts carries a mystery wrapped in layers of time, waiting for someone to unravel it. And the more we dig, the stranger the puzzle becomes. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey through 25 of the most baffling discoveries ever made, artifacts that simply shouldn't exist where they were found. From ancient technology far ahead of its time to relics that suggest cross-continental travel long before it was thought possible, each of these finds opens a door to a world we're only beginning to comprehend. Whether it's a case of mistaken identity, an undiscovered chapter of human history, or something even more extraordinary, one thing's for sure: by the end of this exploration, you'll never look at the past the same way again. Let's dive in. The first artifact on our list might just rewrite the history books if we can ever solve its riddle. Buried in the soil of a Native American settlement in Maine, archaeologists uncovered something that shouldn't have been there: a tiny silver coin, weathered by time but unmistakably Norse. Dubbed the Maine penny, this coin dates back to the 11th century, a time when Viking explorers like Leif Erikson were venturing west. But here's the catch: this coin wasn't found in Greenland or Newfoundland, where Norse settlements are well documented. It turned up hundreds of miles south, in a place no Viking ship was ever known to reach. How did it get there? One theory suggests it arrived through trade networks, passed hand to hand over generations until it wound up far from its origin. Indigenous peoples along the eastern seaboard were skilled traders, moving goods across vast distances. But skeptics argue that if this were part of a broader exchange, why haven't more Norse artifacts surfaced in the area? A single coin feels more like a stray puzzle piece than proof of sustained contact. Then there's the tantalizing possibility that Vikings traveled farther into North America than we've ever realized. The sagas mention expeditions to a place called Vinland, likely modern-day Newfoundland, but could some daring explorers have pushed even further? Without more evidence, the Maine penny remains an enigma, a whisper of a connection that history forgot. What makes this artifact so compelling isn't just its existence, but the questions it forces us to ask. Did a lone Viking trader barter with indigenous communities centuries before Columbus? Was it lost by a traveler or deliberately placed as a token of some unknown exchange? Until another clue surfaces, this silver fragment stands as a quiet challenge to the stories we think we know. And if one coin could upend our understanding of the past, imagine what else might still be waiting beneath the soil. Next up is a discovery so bizarre it makes the Maine penny look almost ordinary. Picture a perfectly ordinary hammer, the kind you'd find in any hardware store today, but with one impossible detail. It was found encased in rock dating back 400 million years. Known as the London Hammer, this artifact was discovered in 1936 near the small town of London, Texas, by a couple out for a stroll along a creek bed. At first glance, it seemed like a simple tool, but the rock surrounding it told a story that defied logic. Geologists who examined the hammer were stunned. The rock layer it was embedded in belonged to the Ordovician period, a time when life on Earth was just beginning to crawl onto land millions of years before humans, or even dinosaurs, existed. The hammer's head, made of iron with unusual purity, showed no signs of rust, and its wooden handle had partially fossilized. How could a modern-looking tool be trapped in ancient stone? Some have suggested extreme explanations like time travelers leaving behind accidental evidence or an advanced civilization lost to history. Others argue for more mundane possibilities, like the hammer being dropped into a pocket of quickly hardening sediment in much more recent times. But if that were the case, why hasn't the wood completely decayed? And how did the iron remain so pristine? What makes the London Hammer so fascinating isn't just its mysterious origin, it's the way it forces us to question our assumptions about time and human achievement. Could there have been an advanced culture capable of metalworking in an era we've written off as primitive? Or does this hammer point to gaps in our understanding of geology itself? Until science can provide definitive answers, this unassuming tool remains a quiet challenge to the timeline we take for granted. And if a single hammer can shake our confidence in history, what other relics might be out there waiting to rewrite the story of our past? Now imagine a device so advanced it could predict celestial events with pinpoint accuracy, 2,000 years before modern computers existed. That's exactly what divers discovered in 1901 when they stumbled upon an ancient Greek shipwreck off the coast of Antikythera. Among statues and pottery lay a corroded bronze lump, initially dismissed as debris. But when archaeologists carefully extracted it, they realized they were holding what's now known as the Antikythera Mechanism, a masterpiece of engineering that shouldn't have existed in its time. This intricate device, about the size of a shoebox, was packed with interlocking gears, precisely calibrated to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It could predict eclipses, chart the timing of Olympic Games, and even account for irregularities in the moon's orbit, a level of sophistication unmatched until the mechanical clocks of the Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. The craftsmanship is staggering, tiny teeth on bronze gears, some as thin as a millimeter, working in perfect harmony like the inner workings of a modern watch. How did the ancient Greeks develop technology this advanced? Historians believe it might have been the work of geniuses like Archimedes or his followers, whose writings hint at lost inventions. But here's the real mystery. If they could build something this complex, why didn't the knowledge spread? Why does the Antikythera Mechanism stand alone, with no other devices like it surviving, or even mentioned in the historical record? Some speculate it was a one-of-a-kind prototype, a royal toy for a wealthy patron, or perhaps a navigational tool for sailors. Others wonder if it's evidence of a broader tradition of ancient technology, most of which was lost to time. The seafloor might still hide answers. Only a fraction of the Antikythera wreck has been explored. What makes this artifact unforgettable isn't just its complexity, but the way it shatters our assumptions about ancient innovation. We often picture the past as a linear march toward progress, but the Antikythera Mechanism whispers a different story, flashes of brilliance so advanced they defy chronology. If this device existed, what else might have been possible and lost in the shadows of history? Deep in the sands of Mesopotamia, buried for over 2,000 years, lies an artifact that could rewrite the history of technology as we know it. Discovered in the 1930s near Baghdad, A set of unassuming clay jars, each about the size of a fist, contained something extraordinary. Inside these jars were rolled copper cylinders, carefully sealed with asphalt, with iron rods suspended in their centers. At first glance, they might look like ancient storage containers, but when researchers filled one with vinegar or grape juice, something remarkable happened. The jar produced a measurable electric current, around 1 volt of electricity. Suddenly, these humble objects earned a new name, the Baghdad Battery. Dating back to around 250 years before the Common Era, these jars predate the invention of the modern battery by nearly 2 millennia. So what were they really used for? One popular theory suggests they served as power sources for electroplating, a technique used to coat objects with thin layers of gold or silver. Ancient Mesopotamians were skilled metalworkers, and artifacts from the period show intricate gilding that could have been achieved through electroplating. If true, this would mean they were harnessing electricity centuries before scientists like Volta and Galvani discovered it in the late 18th century. But not everyone's convinced. Skeptics argue that if these were true batteries, why haven't we found wires, electrodes, or other tools needed to complete an electrical circuit? Some propose they were simply storage vessels for sacred scrolls, with the iron rods acting as protective casings. Others speculate they could have been used for medicinal purposes, delivering mild shocks to relieve pain, an ancient form of electrotherapy. What makes the Baghdad Battery so captivating isn't just the debate over its purpose, but the implications if it really was a power source. It hints at a level of scientific curiosity and experimentation in the ancient world that we're only beginning to appreciate. Could there have been other devices now lost to time that harnessed electricity or even more advanced technologies? The absence of written records leaves us with more questions than answers. For now, these clay jars remain a tantalizing glimpse into a past that might have been far more innovative than we ever imagined. Whether they were batteries, storage containers, or something else entirely, one thing is clear: the Baghdad Battery challenges our assumptions about the timeline of human ingenuity. And if something this sophisticated existed 2,000 years ago, what other secrets might still be waiting beneath the earth? High in the remote mountains of China's Bayanhar region, a discovery in 1938 sent shockwaves through the archaeological world and straight into the realm of science fiction. A team led by archaeologist Kai Pu-te entered a series of ancient caves, expecting to find remnants of early human settlements. Instead, they stumbled upon something far stranger: hundreds of stone discs, each roughly 12 inches in diameter, with a perfectly round hole in the center. These weren't ordinary Neolithic artifacts. Etched into their surfaces were spiraling grooves so fine they resembled tiny hieroglyphs, a script unlike anything seen before. Local legends called them the Dropa stones, named after a mysterious tribe said to have lived in the area thousands of years ago. But the real controversy began when researchers claimed the inscriptions told an unbelievable story, one involving beings from the stars. According to translations published decades later, the text described a spacecraft crash landing in the mountains, its alien occupants stranded and struggling to survive among the local people. The narrative, if true, would be the oldest recorded account of extraterrestrial contact in human history. Of course, not everyone buys into this interstellar theory. Skeptics point out that the discs bear a striking resemblance to ancient Chinese ceremonial objects used in burials. These discs, often made of jade, were placed with the dead to symbolize the heavens. Could the Dropa stones simply be a regional variation of this practice? They're glyphs, nothing more than decorative carving or natural weathering. The problem is, no other discs have been found with similar markings, leaving the mystery wide open. Then there's the question of the translations themselves. The original researcher who claimed to decode the script, Dr. Tsum Amnui, faced such intense ridicule from the academic community that his work was suppressed and the stones were locked away in storage. Without access to the discs or independent verification of the inscriptions, the alien hypothesis remains in limbo. Some linguists argue the symbols could be an unknown proto-writing system, while others insist they're nothing but random scratches amplified by wishful thinking. What makes the Dropa stones so compelling isn't just their cryptic markings, it's the way they straddle the line between archaeology and mythology. If they're Neolithic artifacts, why do they differ so dramatically from other finds of the era? If they're proof of ancient astronauts, where's the corroborating evidence? Until modern technology can analyze them without bias, these stone discs remain one of history's most tantalizing enigmas. Whether they're celestial messages or misunderstood relics, one thing's certain: they challenge us to keep questioning what we think we know about the past. And in that way, they're far more than just stones, they're a doorway to the unknown. In the dusty corners of an Egyptian tomb, buried for over 2,000 years, lies an artifact that looks like it was plucked straight from the pages of a steampunk novel. Discovered in 1898 near the Pyramid of Sakara, this delicate wooden figurine, just 6 inches long, has wings too perfectly shaped to be accidental. With its sleek, aerodynamic curves and a tail fin that looks designed for flight, the so-called Sakara bird doesn't resemble the usual depictions of birds in ancient Egyptian art. Instead, it looks eerily like a modern airplane. At first, archaeologists assumed it was a simple toy or perhaps a ceremonial object shaped like a falcon, a sacred bird linked to the god Horus. But when aerospace engineers examined its design centuries later, they noticed something astonishing. The wings aren't just decorative, they're angled in a way that suggests lift, the same principle that keeps airplanes airborne. In fact, when scaled up and tested in wind tunnels, the Sakara bird's design performs remarkably well, gliding smoothly through the air with minimal adjustments. Could this mean the ancient Egyptians had some understanding of aerodynamics, thousands of years before the Wright brothers? Skeptics argue it's just a coincidence, a stylized bird that happens to resemble modern aircraft. After all, the figurine lacks crucial elements like a propeller or rudder, and there's no evidence the Egyptians ever attempted manned flight. But supporters of the ancient aviation theory point to other clues. Hieroglyphs and temple carvings depict what some interpret as flying machines, including a controversial mural in Abydos that shows what looks like helicopters and jets, though most Egyptologists dismiss these as overlapping carvings eroded by time. Then there's the question of purpose. If the Sakara bird wasn't a toy or religious symbol, what was it? Some suggest it could have been a ceremonial throw glider, used in rituals to symbolize the soul's journey. Others wonder if it was a prototype, a craftsman's experiment inspired by observing birds in flight. Without written records, we're left guessing. What makes this artifact so mesmerizing isn't just its uncanny resemblance to modern technology. It's the way it blurs the line between ancient ingenuity and sheer impossibility. Whether it's proof of lost knowledge or simply a masterful coincidence, the Sakara bird challenges us to reconsider the limits of early innovation. And if a tiny wooden figurine can spark debates this intense, what other forgotten ideas might have slipped through the cracks of history? Imagine holding a book so mysterious that even the world's top cryptographers and linguists have spent over a century failing to crack its code. That's exactly what awaits anyone who dares to flip through the pages of the Voynich Manuscript, a 400-year-old enigma that defies every attempt at translation. Discovered in 1912 by antique book dealer Wilfred Voynich, This handwritten volume contains 240 pages of text in an alphabet unlike any known language, accompanied by surreal illustrations of plants that don't exist, celestial charts with unknown constellations, and naked women bathing in what appears to be a network of green pipes. Carbon dating places its creation somewhere between 1404 and 1438, likely in northern Italy, but that's where the certainty ends. The script, elegant yet utterly indecipherable, flows in neat paragraphs, suggesting it's not random gibberish but a deliberate, sophisticated writing system. Some letters resemble Latin or medieval shorthand, while others seem invented from scratch. Over the years, everyone from World War II codebreakers to modern AI algorithms has tried to unlock its secrets, only to hit dead ends. Even the illustrations deepen the mystery. Botanical drawings mix realistic roots with fantastical leaves, as if the artist were depicting species from another world. Astronomical diagrams show spiral formations unrecognizable to contemporary star maps. And then there are those peculiar, biological sections where female figures float in interconnected tubs of liquid, their purpose as unclear as the text surrounding them. Theories about the manuscript's origins range from the plausible to the outlandish. Some scholars argue it's an elaborate hoax crafted to deceive Renaissance collectors. But if so, why use such a complex, consistent script with no apparent profit motive? Others propose it's a lost language or a cipher for a known tongue, perhaps a forgotten dialect or an encoded scientific treatise. More speculative ideas suggest alchemical knowledge so dangerous it had to be concealed, or even extraterrestrial communication. The most compelling recent research hints at a possible connection to Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs, raising the wild possibility that a Mesoamerican scribe or traveler influenced its creation, though this remains hotly debated. What makes the Voynich manuscript unforgettable isn't just its resistance to decoding, but the way it reflects the limits of human knowledge. In an age where we've digitized ancient libraries and reconstructed dead languages, this book stubbornly guards its secrets. It's a reminder that history isn't a puzzle we've solved, but a labyrinth with rooms still locked. Whether it's a genius's encrypted notebook, an artful forgery, or something far stranger, one thing's certain. Until someone cracks its code, the Voynich manuscript will keep its mysteries tightly bound in those weathered vellum pages. And in a world hungry for answers, maybe that's exactly why it fascinates us so much. In the year 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis assembled one of the most puzzling artifacts in the history of cartography, a map so accurate it defies the limits of 16th century exploration. Drawn on gazelle skin and rediscovered in 1929 in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, this fragment of a larger world map shows coastlines with eerie precision, including the most baffling detail of all: the outline of Antarctica centuries before the frozen continent was officially discovered. Not just a rough sketch, but a depiction so precise it matches modern sonar scans of the landmass beneath the ice, a coastline hidden for millennia. How could a mapmaker from the age of sail possibly know what lay at the bottom of the world? Theories swirl like storm winds around this mystery. Piri Reis himself wrote notes on the map claiming he compiled it from older sources, including charts dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Some researchers suggest these lost references might have come from ancient seafaring civilizations like the Phoenicians or Minoans, who could have possessed advanced navigational knowledge later forgotten. Others point to the map's inclusion of South America's eastern coast, remarkably accurate for an era when European explorers were still charting those waters, as further evidence of pre-Columbian global voyages we've yet to fully understand. But skeptics counter with alternative explanations. Could the land labeled as Antarctica actually be a distorted version of South America's southern tip, stretched and misaligned by the mapmaker's limited perspective. Some geographers argue that without latitude markings, the map's proportions are open to interpretation. Yet, even if that were true, it doesn't account for the uncanny details, like the Andes Mountains drawn where no European had yet ventured, or the inclusion of rivers and bays in Antarctica that align with subglacial topography we only mapped in the 20th century. One of the most compelling clues lies in the map's treatment of Greenland. Unlike other period maps that depicted it as a peninsula, Piri Reis showed it as an island, a fact not confirmed until the 19th century. This accuracy raises a tantalizing question. If the mapmakers knew Greenland's true shape, what else might they have gotten right? The possibility of inherited knowledge from antiquity can't be dismissed, especially when considering ancient texts like Ptolemy's geography, which hinted at southern lands long before their discovery. What makes the Piri Reis map more than just a cartographic oddity is the way it forces us to reconsider the gaps in our historical record. Were there sophisticated global explorers whose achievements were erased by time? Did surviving fragments of their knowledge pass secretly between scholars and sailors, only to surface centuries later in unexpected places? Until we uncover more evidence, this stained fragment of gazelle skin remains a silent witness to mysteries we've only begun to unravel. And if one map could hold secrets this profound, how many others might be waiting in forgotten archives, whispering of worlds we thought we knew? Buried under the roots of a weathered aspen tree in rural Minnesota, a farmer named Olof Oman made a discovery in 1898 that would ignite a controversy spanning over a century. While clearing his land near Kensington, his shovel struck something hard, a flat, 200-pound slab of grey-wacky stone. When he flipped it over, the surface was covered in strange markings, runes, the angular script of ancient Norse explorers. The Kensington Runestone, as it came to be known, bore a date 1392 and a chilling message. Translated, it told of a group of Vikings who ventured far inland from the coast, only to meet a gruesome fate. 8 Goths and 22 Norwegians on an exploration journey from Vinland, it read. We had camped by 2 skerries 1 day's journey north from this stone. We were out fishing one day. After we came home, we found 10 men red with blood and dead. AVM save us from evil. If genuine, this slab would shatter everything we thought we knew about Viking expeditions in North America. It would mean Norse explorers not only reached present-day Minnesota, over 1,000 miles from their known settlements in Newfoundland, but did so nearly a century after the last recorded Viking voyages to Vinland. The implications are staggering: evidence of a lost inland expedition, possible encounters with indigenous peoples, and a timeline that rewrites the history of European presence on the continent. But from the moment it surfaced, the runestone faced fierce skepticism. Critics argued the runes contained modern Swedish dialect influences impossible for 14th century Norse. The stone's discovery by a Swedish immigrant in a region heavily settled by Scandinavians raised suspicions of a hoax. Even the convenient date 1392, exactly 100 years before Columbus's voyage, seemed too perfect, as if designed to upend conventional history. Modern analyses have only deepened the debate. Geologists note the stone's weathering appears consistent with centuries of exposure, while linguists remain divided over oddities in the runes. Some point to similarities with known medieval inscriptions, while others highlight anachronistic word choices. Then there's the archaeological silence. No other Norse artifacts have been found in the region, leaving the runestone as a solitary, uncorroborated outlier. What makes this artifact so compelling isn't just the question of its authenticity, but what it represents about our relationship with history. If it's real, It's a testament to the boundless curiosity and tragic struggles of explorers whose stories were lost to time. If it's a forgery, it's a brilliant and enduring act of myth-making, one that taps into our desire to uncover hidden chapters of the past. Either way, the Kensington Runestone forces us to confront how easily the lines between fact and legend can blur, and how much we still have to learn about the bold journeys that might have shaped our world. Buried in the rocky hills of California's COSO Mountains, a discovery in 1961 blurred the line between ancient and modern in a way that still baffles experts. What started as a routine rockhounding expedition turned into one of geology's greatest riddles when a team cracking open geodes' hollow, crystal-lined rocks found something impossible inside. Nestled within a 500,000-year-old geode was an object unmistakably man-made, a 20th-century spark plug. The so-called COSO artifact, as it came to be known, shouldn't exist. Geodes form over millennia as mineral-rich water deposits crystals layer by layer in cavities within stone. For a spark plug to be encased within one would mean it was present before the geode even began forming, 500,000 years before humans could have manufactured such a device. X-rays revealed the object's internal structure matched early 20th century champion spark plugs, complete with a metal shaft and porcelain insulator. So how did it get there? One explanation points to misidentification. Some geologists argue the geode might actually be a concretion, a faster-forming mineral deposit that could have encased a lost spark plug in mere decades rather than millennia. Others note the area was frequented by miners and motorists in the early 1900s, leaving plenty of opportunities for modern objects to become embedded in rock formations through natural processes. But this theory doesn't fully explain the apparent age of the surrounding matrix, which mineral analysis suggested predated human industry by vast stretches of time. Then there are the more speculative theories. Could the artifact be evidence of time travel, or a lost advanced civilization that somehow mirrored 20th century technology? Proponents of these ideas highlight similar anomalies like the Antikythera Mechanism or Baghdad Battery as proof that human innovation might have had earlier and forgotten peaks. Skeptics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and a single spark plug hardly rewrites history. What makes the COSO artifact so fascinating isn't just the debate over its origin, but what it reveals about how we interpret anomalies. Do we dismiss them as mistakes, embrace them as mysteries, or use them to question the boundaries of our knowledge? Until definitive proof emerges, this humble spark plug remains a silent challenge to our assumptions, and a reminder that the past might still hold surprises we can't yet explain. Etched into the arid plains of southern Peru, a series of colossal figures stretch across the desert floor, some stretching longer than 2 football fields, others spiraling into intricate geometric patterns. These are the Nazca Lines, one of archaeology's most mesmerizing puzzles. Created between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after, these geoglyphs are so massive they can only be fully appreciated from the air. How did an ancient culture, without the benefit of flight, design and execute such precise, sprawling artwork? And more importantly, why? The sheer scale of these designs is staggering. Some depict animals, a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with legs perfectly proportioned, even a monkey with a coiled tail. Others form geometric shapes, trapezoids, triangles, and spirals that stretch for miles across the plateau. The Nazca people made these lines by removing the top layer of reddish-brown pebbles to reveal the lighter-colored earth beneath, a technique that has preserved them for centuries in the rainless climate. But the real mystery lies in their purpose. Without a written record, archaeologists have pieced together theories from scattered clues. One compelling explanation ties the lines to astronomy. Certain glyphs align with celestial events, like the winter solstice or the rising of specific stars, suggesting they might have served as a giant calendar or ritual space for tracking seasonal changes crucial to agriculture. Researchers have noted that many animal figures correspond to constellations in Nazca cosmology. The spider, for example, might represent a star cluster linked to rain in their belief system. This theory paints the lines as a sacred landscape, a way to communicate with the gods who controlled weather and harvests. Then there's the more controversial angle. Could these designs have been meant for viewers not of this world? The idea that the Nazca Lines were landing strips or signals for extraterrestrials gained traction in the mid-20th century, fueled by their aerial visibility and the absence of high vantage points nearby. But most archaeologists dismiss this as modern myth-making, pointing out that the Nazca could have used simple surveying tools, like ropes and stakes, to create the lines from ground level. Experiments have shown that small teams could replicate the glyphs using period-appropriate techniques, no aliens required. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that the lines were part of ritual walks, where participants traced the paths as a form of pilgrimage or spiritual journey. Footprints found near some glyphs support this theory, hinting at ceremonies where the act of walking the lines held deeper meaning. Imagine processions of people moving single file along the geometric shapes, their footsteps weaving a temporary, living connection to the earth and sky. What makes the Nazca Lines unforgettable isn't just their size or precision. It's the way they force us to confront the limits of our understanding. Here's a civilization that turned an entire desert into a canvas, leaving behind messages we're still struggling to decode. Whether they were star maps, sacred paths, or something beyond our imagination, one thing's certain: these lines are a testament to human creativity's boundless reach. And as long as they endure, they'll keep challenging us to see the past and perhaps ourselves in new ways. In a quiet Peruvian town called Aika, a collection of stones has sparked one of archaeology's most heated debates, one that pits dinosaurs against human history. Discovered in the 1960s, the Aika stones are thousands of river-polished andesite rocks, each meticulously carved with scenes that defy conventional timelines. Some depict humans interacting with creatures unmistakably resembling dinosaurs, triceratops, stegosaurs, even pterodactyls soaring overhead. Others show figures using what appear to be telescopes, surgical tools, and advanced machinery, all etched with precision into the dark, weathered surfaces. If authentic, these stones would suggest ancient Andean civilizations possessed knowledge of creatures extinct for 65 million years, or worse, that our understanding of deep time is fundamentally flawed. The man at the center of this controversy was a local farmer turned self-styled archaeologist, Dr. Javier Cabrera, who claimed the stones were discovered in a network of caves by farmers and collected over decades. He argued they were relics of a lost advanced civilization, possibly the work of an ancient culture with access to forgotten scientific wisdom. But skeptics were quick to point out glaring issues. For one, no credible excavation records exist. Most stones surfaced through black market dealers, their origins impossible to verify. Then there's the matter of the carvings themselves. While some display a patina suggesting age, others show fresh tool marks inconsistent with centuries of weathering. Geologists who examined the stones noted something even more damning. The depictions of dinosaurs closely mirror 20th century paleo art, complete with postures and details popularized by mid-century museum reconstructions. The advanced technology scenes also bear a striking resemblance to sci-fi illustrations from the same era. Critics argue this points to an elaborate hoax, possibly crafted by local artisans seeking to profit from the growing demand for pre-Columbian artifacts. In fact, in the late 1970s, a group of Huaqueros grave robbers admitted to carving similar stones themselves, though they couldn't confirm if all the Aika stones were fakes. Yet the mystery isn't so easily dismissed. Some stones were found in undisturbed layers of sediment, and independent labs have dated a few to at least several centuries old. Could there be a kernel of truth hidden among the forgeries? Proponents of the stone's authenticity point to global myths describing dragon-like creatures and thunderbirds, suggesting ancient humans might have encountered, or at least theorized about dinosaur fossils. As for the technology scenes, they argue these could represent metaphorical or ritual knowledge, not literal machinery. After all, the Nazca Lines and Antikythera Mechanism prove ancient cultures achieved sophistication we're still uncovering. What makes the Aika stones so captivating isn't just the question of their origin, but what they reveal about our relationship with the unknown. They force us to confront how easily genuine curiosity can blur into wishful thinking, and how the allure of rewriting history sometimes overrides skepticism. Whether they're ancient artifacts, modern fakes, or a mix of both, these carved rocks serve as a cautionary tale about the stories we're willing to believe and why we want to believe them in the first place. In the end, the real enigma might not be the stones themselves, but our endless fascination with the idea that somewhere hidden in the past lies proof we're not the first to dream of worlds beyond our own. Hidden away in the vaults of Turin Cathedral lies a piece of fabric that has inspired devotion, skepticism, and scientific debate for centuries. The Shroud of Turin, a 14-foot-long linen cloth, bears the faint, haunting imprint of a man's body front and back, as if it once wrapped a figure who suffered crucifixion. The image shows wounds consistent with biblical accounts of Jesus' execution, a crown of thorns, lash marks, and a spear wound to the side. To believers, this is no mere artifact. It's the very cloth that enveloped Christ after his death, a sacred relic imprinted with his likeness through divine means. But science has painted a far more complicated picture, one where faith and facts collide in a mystery that refuses to be resolved. Radiocarbon dating conducted in 1988 by 3 independent labs placed the Shroud's origins between 1260 and 1390 centuries after the crucifixion. This seemed to confirm suspicions that it was a medieval forgery, perhaps created to attract pilgrims or venerate a local saint. Yet almost immediately, critics challenged the results. They pointed to the tested sample, taken from a corner that might have been contaminated by repairs or fire damage. The Shroud survived a chapel blaze in 1532, leaving scorch marks still visible today. Some researchers even argue that the carbon dating was skewed by bacterial or fungal growth on the fibers, substances that could artificially age the material. Then there's the image itself, a puzzle no one has fully replicated. Unlike paint or dye, the markings aren't applied to the surface but result from a subtle chemical change in the linen's outermost fibers, as if the cloth was lightly scorched. Experiments with ultraviolet radiation and static electricity have produced similar effects, but none perfectly match the Shroud's intricate details, down to the 3-dimensional data encoded in the image shading. How could a medieval artist, even a genius, achieve such precision without modern tools? Perhaps the most baffling detail is the presence of pollen grains embedded in the fabric. Botanists identified species native not just to Europe but to the Middle East, including plants found near Jerusalem. Some proponents see this as proof the Shroud originated in the ancient Levant, though skeptics counter that pollen could have been transferred later by pilgrims or traders. Even the bloodstains, analyzed with forensic techniques, contain hemoglobin and proteins consistent with severe trauma, yet their age remains impossible to confirm conclusively. What makes the Shroud of Turin so endlessly compelling isn't just the question of authenticity, but what it reveals about our need to bridge the gap between the tangible and the transcendent. For some, it's a divine fingerprint, a silent witness to resurrection. For others, it's a masterwork of medieval ingenuity, a testament to human creativity. And for science, it remains an enigma, one that challenges our methods, our biases, and our understanding of history itself. Whether sacred or secular, the Shroud's power lies in its ability to hold two truths at once: the limits of our knowledge and the boundless depth of what we still yearn to believe. Deep within the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, a series of enigmatic carvings adorn the walls, images so strikingly modern, they've ignited a debate that straddles the line between archaeology and fringe science. One bas-relief in particular captures the imagination: a massive, elongated object resembling a glass bulb, its interior coiled like a serpent, resting atop what looks like a stand or socket. To some, this is the Dendera light, undeniable proof that ancient Egyptians harnessed electricity thousands of years before its official discovery. To others, it's nothing more than a symbolic representation of a well-known myth, misinterpreted through the lens of modern technology. So which is it, ancient innovation or artistic allegory? Proponents of the ancient light bulb theory point to the carving's uncanny resemblance to a Crookes tube, an early electrical device that produced light by passing current through rarefied gas. The bulb-like shape, the filament-like serpent, and the apparent cables leading to a box interpreted as a power source seem too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Engineer and author Erich von Däniken famously argued that the temple's underground crypts, devoid of soot from torches, could only have been illuminated by artificial light. Even the hieroglyphs nearby describe high poles covered with golden discs that drive away darkness, fueling speculation about lost technological knowledge. If true, this would place the Egyptians centuries ahead of their time, with capabilities rivaling the Baghdad Battery in their sophistication. Yet mainstream Egyptologists offer a radically different reading. The bulb, they argue, is a depiction of the Djed pillar, a symbol of stability crowned by a lotus flower representing creation, the serpent inside. A well-known motif of the god Harsomptus, depicted as a snake emerging from a lotus to signify rebirth. The entire scene, they say, is part of a larger cosmological narrative about the nightly journey of the sun god Ra through the underworld, where he battles chaos before being reborn at dawn. The so-called cables are more likely ritual staffs or offerings, and the absence of soot in crypts can be explained by reflective surfaces or carefully managed oil lamps. What makes the Dendera light so fascinating isn't just the clash of interpretations, it's the way this carving forces us to confront our own biases. Do we see ancient technology because it's there, or because we project our modern world view onto the past? The temple's artists left no technical manuals, only symbols meant to convey spiritual truths, yet the precision of the carving keeps the debate alive. Could it be both, a sacred symbol that also encoded practical knowledge, like the Antikythera Mechanism's blend of astronomy and mechanics? Until new evidence emerges, the Dendera light remains a Rorschach test of history, one that reveals as much about our own curiosity as it does about the ancient world. Whether it's proof of forgotten science or a masterpiece of religious art, one thing's certain: it challenges us to keep questioning not just the past, but how we choose to understand it. Rising from a quiet field in Elbert County, Georgia, the Georgia Guidestone stood for decades as one of America's most enigmatic modern monuments until they didn't. Erected in 1980, these 20-foot tall slabs of granite bore 10 principles etched in 8 languages, from English and Spanish to Swahili and Sanskrit. At first glance, they seemed like a hopeful vision for humanity, urging harmony, sustainability, and wisdom. But the anonymity of their creators, combined with cryptic messages about maintaining global population under 500 million, turned them into a magnet for conspiracy theories and heated debate. Then, in 2022, the stones were demolished in a series of mysterious explosions, leaving behind only fragments and questions. Who built them? What was their true purpose, and why did they vanish so abruptly? The Guidestone's inscriptions read like a manifesto for a new age. Lines like "balance personal rights with social duties" and "avoid petty laws and useless officials" struck a chord with some as common-sense ideals. But it was the first directive, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, that set off alarms. To skeptics, this echoed dystopian fears of population control, fueling speculation about shadowy elites orchestrating a depopulation agenda. The stone's alignment with astronomical features like the North Star and solstice sun only deepened the intrigue, inviting comparisons to ancient megaliths like Stonehenge. Was this a modern-day mystery cult or something far more pragmatic? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the shadows. The monument was commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who claimed to represent a small group of Americans seeking to leave guidance for future generations. Working through a local banker and granite company, Christian paid for the project in cash, leaving no paper trail. His chosen name, some researchers note, might reference Christian Rosenkreutz, the legendary founder of the Rosicrucian Order, a secret society obsessed with esoteric knowledge and societal transformation. Others dismiss this as coincidence, arguing the Guidestones were merely an eccentric art project with lofty aspirations. Then there's the timing. The stones appeared at the dawn of the Reagan era, amid Cold War tensions and growing environmental awareness. Their emphasis on reason, reproduction limits, and ecological balance mirrored the emerging sustainability movement, but also dovetailed with darker eugenics rhetoric lingering from earlier decades. This duality made them a Rorschach test, to some, a blueprint for utopia, to others, a warning of authoritarianism. The Guidestone's destruction in 2022 only amplified the mystery. Official reports blamed vandalism, but the precision of the explosions suggested insider knowledge. Was it an act of protest against the monument's perceived ideology, or a cover-up to erase its secrets? The remaining fragments, now stored in a secure facility, offer no clear answers. What lingers isn't just the question of who built the Guidestones, it's why their message resonated or repelled so powerfully. In a world hungry for direction, these granite slabs became a canvas for our deepest hopes and fears. Whether they were a benign thought experiment or something more sinister, their legacy endures, a reminder that even in the modern age, monuments can still hold mysteries as impenetrable as any ancient artifact. And sometimes the most puzzling relics aren't found in tombs or temples, but right beside us, waiting to be deciphered or destroyed. In the icy depths of the Baltic Sea, a sonar image captured in 2011 by a Swedish diving team unveiled a shape so bizarre it sparked instant global fascination. Lying nearly 300 feet below the surface, the so-called Baltic Sea Anomaly stretches 200 feet across. Its smooth, disc-like form punctuated by strange angular features resembling staircases or runways. To some, this was no natural formation. It was a crashed UFO, an ancient monument, or even a sunken Nazi anti-gravity device. But to geologists, it was just another quirk of Earth's ever-shifting crust. So which is it, evidence of the extraordinary, or a reminder of how little we know about our own planet? the Anomaly's discoverers, ocean explorers Peter Lindbergh and Dennis Asberg, initially dismissed it as a glitch. But when subsequent scans revealed the object's distinct symmetry, including what appeared to be a raised central structure and trailing skid marks, skepticism turned to intrigue. Samples retrieved from the site added fuel to the fire. Divers reported their electrical equipment malfunctioned near the object, while lab tests showed traces of metals like limonite and goethite, compounds sometimes linked to corroded iron structures. Most baffling of all was a strange blackened material found on the surface, which some claimed resembled melted meteorite or even extraterrestrial alloys. Yet for every tantalizing clue, there's a sobering counterpoint. Marine geologists note the Baltic seafloor is littered with glacial remnants from the last ice age, including erratic boulders and moraines shaped by retreating glaciers. The Anomaly's runway-like features, parallel grooves carved by icebergs scraping the seabed, the melted material, potentially just nodules of manganese or other common seabed deposits. Even the electrical malfunctions could be explained by natural methane seeps interfering with equipment, a phenomenon well documented in oceanography. What keeps this mystery alive, though, isn't just the object itself, it's the unresolved questions. Why does the Anomaly's shape appear so unnaturally geometric compared to surrounding formations? If it's merely a glacial deposit, why haven't similar structures been found elsewhere in the region? And perhaps most compelling, why has no major scientific institution mounted a full-scale expedition to study it? The Baltic Sea Anomaly embodies our timeless fascination with the unexplained. It's a Rorschach test in the deep believers see a relic of ancient astronauts or lost technology, while skeptics see the power of pareidolia, our tendency to find patterns in randomness. But whether it's a UFO or just a peculiar rock, one thing's certain. It reminds us that even in an age of satellites and submersibles, the oceans still hold secrets waiting to surface. And sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't about what we find, but how fiercely we keep searching for answers. Deep in the jungles of Central America, legends whisper of artifacts so flawless they defy the limits of ancient craftsmanship, the crystal skulls. These hauntingly beautiful carvings, sculpted from solid blocks of quartz, depict human skulls with eerie precision, from the delicate cheekbones to the intricate teeth. Some claim they're relics of lost Mesoamerican civilizations like the Aztecs or Maya, imbued with supernatural powers to heal, prophesize, or even harness cosmic energy. Others insist they're nothing more than clever forgeries, products of 19th century ingenuity rather than pre-Columbian artistry. So where does the truth lie, and why do these enigmatic objects continue to captivate us? The most famous of these skulls, the Mitchell-Hedges skull, emerged in the early 20th century under murky circumstances. Adventurer F.A. Mitchell-Hedges claimed his daughter discovered it beneath a Mayan altar in Belize in 1924, though records suggest he may have acquired it at a London auction years earlier. What sets this skull apart is its uncanny realism. The jawbone detaches smoothly, and the quartz is so clear it seems to glow from within. Experts who examined it noted the absence of tool marks, leading to wild speculation that it was carved using lost technologies or even extraterrestrial assistance. But when scientists subjected similar skulls to modern analysis, the results were sobering. Microscopic examination revealed traces of rotary wheels and abrasives, tools unavailable to ancient Mesoamericans but commonplace in 19th century European workshops. Yet the mystery doesn't end there. Indigenous oral traditions from Mexico to Honduras speak of sacred crystal skulls used in rituals to commune with ancestors or channel divine energy. The Aztecs revered skulls as symbols of regeneration, and their craftsmen carved them from obsidian and jade, but no surviving records mention quartz, a material far harder to work. Proponents of the skull's antiquity argue that their spiritual significance aligns too closely with these traditions to be coincidence. Could a handful of genuine artifacts exist among the fakes, preserved through secret lineages or buried in undiscovered ruins? What makes the crystal skulls more than just archaeological curiosities is their enduring grip on popular imagination. They've inspired blockbuster films, conspiracy theories, and New Age movements, all drawn to their blend of beauty and mystery. Whether they're ancient talismans or Victorian hoaxes, their legacy reminds us how easily the line between history and myth can blur, and why we're still drawn to objects that promise a glimpse into the unknown. In the end, their true power might not lie in their origins, but in the stories we choose to see reflected in their flawless, unblinking faces. Tucked away in the dusty archives of a South African museum, a collection of small, unassuming spheres holds one of geology's most perplexing secrets. Known as the Klerksdorp spheres, these metallic objects no larger than a walnut were discovered deep inside Precambrian rock layers, dating back an astonishing 2.8 billion years. At first glance, they might look like simple mineral nodules, but their features tell a different story. Each sphere is etched with perfectly symmetrical grooves encircling its equator, so precise they appear machined. Some even have faint parallel lines running along their surfaces, as if crafted by tools far more advanced than anything known to exist when these rocks first formed. The mystery deepens when you consider the material. Composed of hematite or pyrite, these spheres are harder than steel, yet their grooves show no signs of natural weathering or erosion. Geologists who have studied them are split. One camp argues they're the result of natural concretion, a process where minerals slowly accumulate around a central nucleus, forming spherical shapes over eons. In rare cases, geological pressures or fluid dynamics could theoretically create grooves, but the counterpoint is hard to ignore. Natural formations rarely exhibit such exact symmetry. The grooves on these spheres are evenly spaced, as if designed with intent. Then there's the question of their age. 2.8 billion years places their formation in a time when Earth's atmosphere was toxic, devoid of oxygen, and the most complex life forms were single-celled bacteria. The idea that an intelligent civilization could have existed then, let alone one capable of precision metalwork, defies everything we know about evolutionary history. Yet the sphere's discoverers, miners working in the Artostel region, reported finding them embedded in undisturbed rock strata, ruling out modern contamination. Could there be a middle ground? Some researchers propose the spheres might be the product of extremophile microbes, whose colonies could have influenced mineral deposition in ways we don't yet understand. Others suggest they're remnants of a natural but poorly documented geological phenomenon, like volcanic ejecta shaped by unique atmospheric conditions. But until someone replicates their formation in a lab, the debate remains open. What makes the Klerksdorp spheres so fascinating isn't just their unexplained origins, it's the way they force us to confront the gaps in our understanding of deep time. If they're natural, they represent a geological oddity so rare we've yet to find another like it. If they're artificial, they rewrite the entire timeline of human, or perhaps non-human achievement. Either way, these tiny grooved spheres serve as a humbling reminder. The further back we look, the more we realize how much we still have to learn. Along the banks of Romania's Mureș River in 1974, construction workers digging 10 meters below the surface stumbled upon an object that shouldn't have existed, the Aid artifact. Buried deep within a layer of Pleistocene sediment, This wedge-shaped metal piece looked like nothing else in the archaeological record. At first glance, you might mistake it for part of an excavator's tooth or a piece of heavy machinery. But here's what makes it impossible. Scientific analysis revealed it was made of an alloy consisting primarily of aluminum, a metal humans only learned to produce in quantity during the 19th century. Yet the surrounding sediment dated back at least 11,000 years, to a time when humanity was just emerging from the Ice Age with stone tools and primitive pottery. So how did this metallic anomaly find its way into ancient Earth? Tests conducted at 2 separate laboratories confirmed the artifact's composition 89% aluminum, with traces of copper, zinc, lead, and other elements. The oxidized layer coating its surface suggested extreme age, matching the encrusted shells and fossils found nearby. But aluminum doesn't occur naturally in pure form. Extracting it requires an industrial process called electrolysis, which wasn't invented until 1825. This leaves us with 2 unsettling possibilities. Either our dating methods are catastrophically wrong, or someone or something possessed advanced metallurgical knowledge millennia before recorded history. Some researchers propose the object might be a fragment of a much larger machine. Its concave grooves and symmetrical ridges resemble mechanical components, leading to speculation about landing gear from an ancient aircraft or even extraterrestrial technology. Others argue it could be a misidentified fossilized bone or a natural metallic concretion, though neither explanation accounts for the precise alloy composition. The most grounded theory suggests it fell from a modern vehicle or aircraft during earlier excavation attempts, somehow becoming embedded deeper than expected. But workers swore the surrounding clay was undisturbed when they uncovered it, with no signs of recent intrusion. What makes the Ayad artifact particularly haunting is the lack of context. Unlike other out-of-place artifacts found in controlled digs, this one emerged from a construction site with limited documentation. No photographs exist of its original position in the sediment layer, and the exact stratigraphy remains debated. Without these clues, we're left with an object that defies its own timeline, a metallic whisper from the distant past that refuses to fit neatly into the story we've written about human progress. Whether it's evidence of forgotten innovation, an elaborate hoax, or something beyond our understanding, one thing's clear: this unassuming wedge of aluminum keeps the door to history's mysteries firmly ajar. And behind that door, there may still be answers waiting to reshape everything we thought we knew. Buried within a lump of coal mined in 1885 near Wolfsegg, Austria, an object no larger than a child's fist would ignite a debate that still smolders today. Workers splitting open the coal seam discovered an iron cube, its sharp edges and geometric precision standing in stark contrast to the organic contours of the surrounding fossil fuel. At first, they assumed it was a discarded piece of mining equipment until geologists confirmed the coal itself dated back an astonishing 20 million years, long before humans walked the earth. The Wolfsegg iron, as it came to be known, shouldn't exist, yet there it was, a metallic enigma defying the very timeline we've built for our planet's history. The cube's unnatural symmetry immediately raised eyebrows, measuring roughly 2 inches on each side with a slight convexity to its faces. It bore no resemblance to known mineral formations like pyrite nodules, which tend to grow in rough, irregular clusters. Instead, its surfaces appeared almost machined, with a distinct groove running around its midsection, as if designed for assembly. Chemical analysis revealed it was nearly pure iron with traces of nickel and sulfur, a composition inconsistent with meteoric origins, the usual source of ancient metal deposits. So if it wasn't a meteorite and couldn't be man-made, where did it come from? skeptics argue the cube might be a byproduct of natural geological processes, like extreme pressure forming a rare crystalline structure. Others propose it's a pseudometeorite, a terrestrial object altered by lightning strikes or underground fires. But these theories struggle to explain the cube's precise angles or the absence of similar finds in other coal deposits. The more tantalizing and controversial hypothesis suggests it's evidence of an advanced prehistoric civilization or even extraterrestrial visitors. Proponents point to its resemblance to cast iron artifacts from the 19th century, raising the unsettling possibility that someone or something possessed metallurgical knowledge millions of years before Homo sapiens evolved. Adding to the intrigue, the original cube vanished during World War II, leaving only replicas and sketches for study. Some claim it was confiscated for secret research, while others believe it was simply misplaced in the chaos of the war. Without the physical artifact, modern testing is impossible, leaving us with century-old reports and educated guesses. What lingers isn't just the question of the cube's origin, but what its existence, if genuine, implies about the gaps in our understanding. Could Earth's deep past hold chapters of technological achievement erased by time? Or does the wolf's egg iron stand as a testament to nature's ability to mimic human craftsmanship in ways we've yet to comprehend? Until another impossible artifact surfaces, this unassuming iron cube remains a quiet challenge to the stories we tell about our planet's history, and a reminder that sometimes the most profound mysteries come in small, geometric packages. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, a collection of stone spheres sits silently beneath the canopy, hundreds of them, some as small as a baseball, others towering taller than a person, each one carved with near-perfect precision. Discovered in the 1930s by workers clearing land for banana plantations, these orbs, known as the stone spheres of Costa Rica, are so flawlessly round that modern engineers struggle to explain how ancient artisans achieved such symmetry without advanced tools. Made from gabbro, a hard volcanic rock, or limestone, their surfaces are so smooth they feel almost polished, their curves exact enough to rival the precision of industrial machinery. But here's the real puzzle. They date back over 1,000 years to a time when the region's indigenous cultures, like the Diquis and Boruca peoples, left no written records of their purpose. Archaeologists have pieced together fragments of their history, but the stones guard their secrets fiercely. Some sit in solitary grandeur, while others cluster in geometric patterns. Straight lines, triangles, even alignments that mirror constellations. This has led to theories that they functioned as celestial calendars, their arrangements marking solstices or lunar cycles. Others speculate they were status symbols, placed outside the homes of chiefs or warriors to signify power. A few even suggest they could have been part of ritual games or sacred pathways, guiding participants through spiritual journeys. But without first-hand accounts, every explanation remains speculative, a best guess at decoding a language lost to time. The methods used to create these spheres are just as mystifying. Researchers believe the craftsmen likely hammered the stones with other rocks, then painstakingly polished them with sand or leather, a process that would have taken months, if not years, for a single sphere. But how did they maintain such perfect symmetry without measuring devices? Some propose they used a system of strings or wooden frames to check curvature, while others wonder if they employed a slurry of water and abrasive materials to refine the surface. The sheer effort required hints at a society that valued these objects immensely, investing countless hours into their creation for reasons we can only imagine. What makes these spheres truly captivating, though, is their resilience. Many were moved from their original sites during the 20th century, rolled away by bulldozers or looted as curiosities, yet they still captivate those who encounter them. UNESCO declared them a World Heritage Site in 2014, recognizing their cultural significance, but the deeper questions remain unanswered. Were they meant to last forever, silent witnesses to a civilization's ingenuity, or do they carry messages we've yet to decipher, encoded not in words but in stone? Unlike other ancient mysteries, the stone spheres of Costa Rica don't rely on grandeur or shock value to intrigue us. Their power lies in their simplicity, a perfect shape repeated over and over, as if the artisans were trying to tell us something fundamental about balance, the cosmos, or the nature of perfection itself. And as long as they endure, they'll keep challenging us to look beyond the obvious, to see the extraordinary in what might otherwise seem like just another rock in the jungle. In the highlands of Bolivia, near the shores of Lake Titicaca, a farmer's plow struck something unexpected in the 1950s, not a rock or a root, but a large ceramic bowl unlike anything else found in the region. When archaeologists examined it, they were stunned to find inscriptions covering its interior, their angular shapes unmistakably familiar. These weren't the symbols of Andean cultures, they were cuneiform, the wedge-shaped writing system of ancient Mesopotamia. Known as the Fuente Magna Bowl, this artifact shouldn't exist. It's a relic from the other side of the world, buried in soil it had no logical reason to touch. The bowl's inscriptions, once translated, revealed a mix of Sumerian and Proto-Sumerian script, dating back roughly 4,000 years. One passage appears to be a dedication to the goddess Nia, while others resemble temple invocations found in modern-day Iraq. The craftsmanship, too, stands out. The ceramic's composition matches local Bolivian clays, suggesting it was made in the region, but by whom? Sumerians weren't known for transoceanic voyages, and South America's ancient civilizations had no documented contact with the Middle East. So how did a vessel bearing cuneiform end up thousands of miles from its linguistic homeland? Theories range from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some scholars propose the bowl could be evidence of indirect trade networks, where objects passed through countless hands across continents over centuries. Ancient maritime routes, though unproven, might have connected distant cultures through intermediaries. Others wonder if it hints at a lost migration, a group of Sumerians venturing far beyond their documented travels, perhaps driven by war or famine. More controversial suggestions even raise the specter of a shared, forgotten global civilization predating known history, though this lacks concrete evidence. Skeptics, however, point to inconsistencies. The cuneiform shows irregularities, some signs are simplified or misaligned, as if copied by someone unfamiliar with the script. Could it be an elaborate hoax? The bowl's discovery predates modern authentication techniques, and its provenance remains murky. Yet the ceramic's aging and mineral deposits appear genuine, and no clear motive for forgery exists. What makes the Fuente Magna bowl so compelling isn't just its inscriptions, it's the questions it forces us to ask about the gaps in our historical maps. Were ancient peoples more interconnected than we've realized? Could sporadic, unrecorded encounters have left traces in places we'd never think to look? Until another artifact bridges these worlds, the bowl remains a silent enigma, its whispers of connection lost in the winds of the Andes. And in that silence, it challenges us to keep searching for the threads that might, one day, weave our fractured understanding of the past into something whole. Buried beneath the ruins of a pre-Columbian pyramid in Tlaxcala, Mexico, a small terracotta head sparked a firestorm in the archaeological world when it was unearthed in 1933. With its curly beard, distinctively European features, and hairstyle resembling Roman sculptures from the 2nd century, this artifact, known as the Tlaxcala head, looks like it was plucked straight from the Mediterranean and dropped into ancient Mesoamerica. The implications are staggering. If authentic, it could rewrite history as proof of transatlantic contact between Rome and the Americas centuries before Columbus. But with no clear trail of how it got there, the head remains one of archaeology's most hotly debated enigmas. The discovery site adds layers to the mystery. The head was found under undisturbed layers of volcanic ash and construction debris, linked to the Matlatzinca culture that thrived between the 12th and 15th centuries. Radiocarbon dating of surrounding materials places it firmly in this period, yet stylistically, it's a dead ringer for Roman art. The craftsmanship, particularly the intricate detailing of the beard and the classical helmet of curls, matches techniques used in Roman workshops during the reign of emperors like Hadrian or Marcus Aurelius. So how did a Roman artifact wind up buried in Mexico over 1,000 years later? Skeptics argue it's a colonial-era forgery, perhaps brought by Spanish conquistadors and later mixed into older layers. But the excavation was led by reputable archaeologist José Garcia Payon, who documented the find meticulously, noting the undisturbed stratigraphy around it. Others suggest it might be a post-colonial oddity, a European object misplaced during later construction, except the head shows weathering consistent with centuries of burial, and no similar colonial artifacts were found nearby. The most tantalizing theory involves ancient seafarers. Could a Roman ship, blown off course or exploring trade routes, have reached the Americas? Historians point to evidence of Roman trade extending as far as India and the Canary Islands, proving their vessels were capable of long ocean journeys. Alternatively, the head might have traveled through a chain of intermediaries, passed from hand to hand across continents over generations until its origins were forgotten. Yet the absence of other Roman artifacts in the region casts doubt. If contact occurred, wouldn't there be more evidence, coins, tools, or even written accounts? The head stands alone, a solitary outlier in the archaeological record. What makes this artifact so compelling isn't just the question of its journey, it's the way it forces us to confront how little we know about the fluidity of the ancient world. Could there have been fleeting, unrecorded encounters between civilizations we assume were worlds apart? Or does the Tekaxitlahuoca head simply remind us that human creativity can produce strikingly similar art across cultures, separated by time and space? Until another impossible artifact surfaces, this terracotta face remains a silent provocateur, daring us to reconsider the boundaries of history and the threads that might have once connected them. On the rugged shores of Kinguddy Quarry in Scotland, a workman splitting sandstone blocks in the mid-19th century uncovered something that would baffle geologists for generations. Wedged deep within rock dating back an astonishing 400 million years long before dinosaurs walked the earth, lay a crude but unmistakable iron hammer. The Kinguddy hammer, as it came to be known, shouldn't have existed. Its wooden handle, partially transformed into coal by the pressures of time, protruded from stone formed during the Devonian period, an era when the first primitive plants were just beginning to colonize land. What makes this artifact so perplexing isn't just its age, it's the state of preservation. The hammerhead, made of iron with no signs of rust, showed clear signs of craftsmanship, with a tapered shape suggesting it was handmade rather than mass-produced. The surrounding sandstone, hardened over eons, showed no cracks or fissures where the tool could have been inserted later. It was as if the hammer had been dropped into soft sediment that then petrified around it, locking the object in a geological time capsule. Skeptics have proposed various theories to explain its presence. Could the hammer have been left behind by miners in recent centuries, only to become encased in mineral deposits that hardened rapidly? Some suggest that iron-rich solutions might have cemented the tool in place within decades, creating the illusion of great age. But this doesn't fully account for the partial coalification of the wooden handle, a process typically requiring millions of years of pressure. Others argue the hammer might be a geofact, a natural formation that coincidentally resembles a human-made object, though its symmetry and material composition make this unlikely. The Kingudi hammer's mystery deepens when compared to similar out-of-place artifacts like the London hammer or the wolf's egg iron. Each of these objects shares a common thread. They're technological anomalies trapped in rock layers far older than human history. Could they be remnants of a forgotten civilization, one that achieved metallurgical prowess before being erased by time? Or do they point to gaps in our understanding of geology processes that might occasionally preserve modern objects in ancient strata? Unlike other controversial artifacts, the Kingudi hammer was documented soon after its discovery, reducing the likelihood of deliberate hoaxing. Yet the lack of contemporary testing modern analysis could clarify its metallurgy and organic components leaves critical questions unanswered. Its current whereabouts are uncertain, adding another layer of frustration for researchers. What lingers isn't just the hammer's impossible age, but the way it challenges our confidence in deep time. Geology operates on scales almost incomprehensible to human experience, and discoveries like this force us to confront how much we still don't know. Whether it's evidence of a lost chapter in Earth's history or a quirk of nature we've yet to explain, the Kingudi hammer remains a stubborn puzzle, one that refuses to fit neatly into the story we've written about our planet's past. And sometimes the most humbling mysteries come not from distant stars, but from the rocks beneath our feet. In the quiet soil of Meredith, New Hampshire, a peculiar artifact surfaced in 1872 that still defies explanation. Workers digging a hole for a fence post struck something hard, a dark, egg-shaped stone about 4 inches tall, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story no one could read. This was the Lake Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone, a polished enigma that looks like it was plucked from another time. Smooth as glass and perfectly symmetrical, it's pierced by a hole at both ends, drilled with such precision that modern engineers marvel at its craftsmanship. But here's what stumps historians. The symbols etched into its surface don't match any known language or culture from the region. The carvings are a chaotic collage of imagery, a teepee, an ear of corn, a crescent moon, and faces with haunting, almost otherworldly expressions. On one side, what looks like an arrow points upward, while spiral patterns coil like ancient labyrinths. Some researchers detect hints of Native American symbolism, particularly from the Abenaki people who once inhabited the area. The corn and teepee motifs could suggest a ceremonial object, perhaps a talisman for harvest rituals or a storyteller's prop. Yet the stone's material adds another layer of intrigue. Analysis reveals it's a type of quartzite, but not local to New England. Its nearest geological matches lie hundreds of miles away, raising questions about how it arrived in New Hampshire. Then there's the wildcard theory, Celtic influence. A handful of scholars point to the spiral designs, which bear an uncanny resemblance to motifs found in prehistoric Irish and Scottish carvings. Could this stone be evidence of transatlantic contact long before Columbus, a relic left by Celtic explorers who ventured into North America? Proponents of this idea cite the controversial Newport Tower in Rhode Island or the Maine penny as potential corroborating evidence. But critics dismiss this as wishful thinking, noting the lack of any other Celtic artifacts in the region. The mystery deepens when you examine the holes drilled through the stone. Microscopic analysis shows the bore marks are conical, suggesting they were made by a tool rotating in one direction, a technique consistent with 19th century drilling methods. This has led some to argue the stone might be an elaborate hoax crafted by a skilled artisan of the era. Yet the stone's patina and mineral deposits indicate it spent centuries underground, long before its discovery. If it's a forgery, why bury it so carefully, and why choose such cryptic, untraceable symbols? What makes the Lake Winnipesaukee stone unforgettable isn't just its unanswered questions, it's the way it refuses to fit neatly into any narrative. Unlike other out-of-place artifacts tied to known civilizations, this one floats in a void, its origins as opaque as the material it's made from. Is it a sacred object from a lost tribe, a traveler's keepsake from a forgotten voyage, or something even stranger, a message in stone meant for an audience we'll never fully understand? Today, the stone sits in the New Hampshire Historical Society, silently challenging every visitor who peers into its worn grooves. It's a reminder that history isn't just the stories we've pieced together, it's also the gaps we've yet to bridge. And sometimes the smallest artifacts hold the loudest echoes of the past, whispering across centuries in a language we're still learning to hear. History isn't just the story we've agreed upon, it's the sum of all the unanswered questions that refuse to fit neatly into textbooks. The artifacts we've explored don't merely defy expectations, they expose the fragile edges of our understanding, revealing how much of the past remains shrouded in mystery. Mainstream archaeology, for all its rigor, often operates like a courtroom, demanding incontrovertible evidence before accepting new testimony. Yet these objects, whether the Antikythera Mechanism's celestial precision or the Fuente Magna Bowl's transcontinental script, are like whispers from witnesses who never got to take the stand. Consider the tension between skepticism and possibility. On one side, you have scholars who argue that anomalies like the Baghdad Battery or the Sakara bird are either misidentified mundane objects or the work of later contamination. They point to Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one: a Viking coin in Maine, lost trade goods, a hammer in ancient rock. Geological coincidence, but on the other side are the tantalizing gaps, the lack of soot in Dendera's crypts, the absence of any other Roman artifacts near the Takaxic Calixtlahuoka head that keep the door open for more radical interpretations. What makes these debates so gripping is the way they force us to confront the limits of human knowledge. Take the Piri Reis map. If it truly depicts Antarctica's ice-free coastline, does that mean some ancient civilization mapped the planet before recorded history? Or does it simply reflect the human tendency to see patterns where none exist? The answer might lie somewhere in between. Maritime cultures like the Phoenicians or Polynesians ventured far beyond their homelands, and oral traditions often carry fragments of truth across generations. Could the map be a patchwork of half-remembered voyages, stitched together by a Renaissance admiral with access to forgotten charts? Then there's the specter of lost civilizations. Plato's Atlantis might be a myth, but the geological record shows cataclysms like the Younger Dryas impact, a comet strike around 12,000 years ago that triggered global floods and climate chaos. Could advanced societies have been wiped out, leaving only scattered relics like the Klerksdorp spheres or the Ayard artifact as clues? It's a seductive idea, but one that demands extraordinary proof. After all, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, but it's not confirmation either. And what of the extraterrestrial angle? The Dropa stone's alleged alien narrative or the Baltic Sea anomaly's otherworldly silhouette tap into a deeper human longing, the hope that we're not alone and that our ancestors might have known it. Yet these theories often crumble under scrutiny, revealing more about our modern fascination with the cosmos than about ancient realities. Still, the persistence of such ideas speaks volumes. They're not just about aliens, they're about humility. They remind us that for all our satellites and supercomputers, the past remains a frontier as vast and uncharted as the stars. In the end, these artifacts matter not because they prove any single theory, but because they keep us questioning. They're the loose threads in history's tapestry, inviting us to pull gently, not to unravel the whole cloth, but to see how much more might be woven beneath. Whether they're proof of forgotten genius, intercultural connections lost to time, or simply the stubborn outliers that every scientific discipline must contend with, they challenge us to stay curious. Because the moment we stop asking how and why is the moment the past becomes a museum static, silent, and far less interesting than the truth likely is. From misplaced coins to impossible machinery, these 25 artifacts aren't just curiosities, they're cracks in the foundation of what we think we know. Each one forces us to wrestle with the uncomfortable truth that history isn't a finished puzzle, but a living conversation. Take the Maine penny. A single Norse coin in a Native American settlement might seem insignificant until you realize it could rewrite the entire timeline of transatlantic contact. Or the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced it makes you wonder how many other bursts of ancient brilliance were lost to time. These aren't just oddities, they're invitations to look closer, to question the stories we've been told. What's fascinating isn't just the objects themselves, but the reactions they provoke. For every researcher convinced the Baghdad Battery proves ancient electroplating, there's another ready to dismiss it as a ceremonial vase. The Dropa stones, to some, they're interstellar messages. To others, Neolithic burial discs misread through modern eyes. This tension between skepticism and wonder is where the real magic happens. It's easy to assume we've got the past figured out, but artifacts like these remind us that every era has its blind spots, including ours. Who's to say what future generations will find baffling about our technology? Then there's the human element behind these mysteries. Picture the artisan who carved the Sakara bird, unaware their work would fuel debates about aviation millennia later. Or the anonymous mapmaker whose charts, copied and recopied, somehow preserved the outline of Antarctica long before its official discovery. These creators never intended their work to become enigmas. They were simply leaving traces of their world. And that's the humbling part. For all our satellites and algorithms, we're still piecing together their messages like detectives deciphering a half-burned manuscript. So which artifact lingers in your mind? Is it the haunting image on the Shroud of Turin, defying both faith and science? The eerie symmetry of the Baltic Sea anomaly, daring us to wonder what lies beneath the waves? Or maybe it's the quietest of them all, the Lake Winnipesaukee stone, whispering in symbols no one alive can translate. Whatever your pick, these mysteries share one vital lesson. The past is far stranger, richer, and more elusive than any textbook could capture. That's the thrill of exploration, isn't it? Not just finding answers, but uncovering better questions. So tell us, which of these 25 artifacts makes you rethink history? Drop your thoughts below, and if you're hungry for more deep dives into the shadows of time, hit that subscribe button, because the next great discovery might be just one excavation or one click